Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us today for this first in what's hopefully a very long series of lunchtime webinar series we're calling Learning at Lunch. This one's focus is assistive technology and transition. Again, thanks for taking the time to be with us today, or if you're listening to the webinar after on a recording, thanks for taking some time out of your day to listen to that as well. Couple quick things before we get started, before we get rolling into the content itself. Just quick little housekeeping things. You should have a toolbar that popped up, which gave you a bunch of options as to how you can manage your experience here. As we go through, we have taken the liberty of muting people as they came in, so that you should be muted right now. If you're not, next time I see someone pop on, I'll mute everybody, so we're back to muting. And that's just to keep the background noise to a minimum. If you do have a question and you want to voice that question to us as opposed to writing it in the chat bar, that's fine too. Just wait for Adam and myself to take a breath, which will definitely happen at some point, and then just jump in. And we'd be happy to hear from you. We want you guys to ask questions. We want you to get as much information as you can out of this webinar. Again, just a quick reminder, we are recording this, so when the webinar is done and the recording is finished, we'll send you a follow-up link with any additional information that will have the recording link in it, so you can go back and review it at any time. So again, thanks for being here. Again, I mentioned we had a chat window. There is a chat window on that toolbar along the bottom. Feel free, drop in some comments. It gives you an opportunity to chat with each other. I know I'm perfectly fine with people chatting underneath the conversation. I think that's great too. And Adam, I'm sure, is okay with that as well. So please feel free. Leave your questions, comments. Even if you come up with a great idea you want to share, an idea or a strategy, we'd love to hear that too. Because these things are going to make everybody better. So we're excited to have you guys participate in that way. So thank you. All right. Adam, I'll stop talking for a second and you can talk.
Oh, okay.
Oops, sorry.
Thank you. Just give credit where credit is due. Hello, everyone. My name is Adam Krass, and this presentation is based on one that Mike and I created through a DRNJ Assistive Technology Advocacy Center grant that was given to us last year. We partnered with Statewide Parent Advocacy Network, SPAN, and very much looking forward to talking about assistive technology and transition today. A little bit about myself. I'm an assistive technology consultant based in northern New Jersey. A little bit more than 25 years of experience with assistive technology. Doesn't seem like it's been that long, but it has. I work in the northern half of New Jersey and New York City. I'm the president of Adam Krass Consulting, and I'm also an adjunct instructor at Kean University, a New Jersey CART board member, and just self-published a mini ebook on assistive technology for pre-writing and idea organization.
And my name is Mike Marotta. That is me up there. I am the director of the Richard West Assistive Technology Advocacy Center, the ATAC, which is our state's Tech Act project, the organization that is hosting our webinar today. Happy to be here. I'm glad I'm here with Adam doing this again. We had a great time doing it last time. I know we will again. Just a little background about me. Just like Adam, I don't even write it on the slide, but I can't believe it's been 25 plus years as well that I've been in the field. Adam at least puts it out there. I'm trying to hide it, I think. I don't even know what. Oof, that's crazy. But I'm an assistive technology evaluator, a trainer. I am also an adjunct professor at Ramapo College and Felician University. I co-moderate the AT Chat, which is on Twitter every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. And then also the founder of EdCamp Access New Jersey. Again, happy to be here with us today. Quick little plug, real fast, a quick little ATAC plug. Mark your calendars now, save the date. we are going to be having an Assistive Technology Summit that's happening in September, Tuesday, September 19th. Registration's not open yet. We'll open that probably sometime in April. Right now, we're currently accepting proposals for presentations. So if you're interested in sharing some of the work you're doing with us and you want to present, we would love to have you. The call for papers is open, and that's at bit.ly/ATSummit17. And that'll get you to the proposal page. Any of the accepted proposals for the conference will get a free conference registration, so you won't have to pay. So we hope you'd consider presenting. We look forward to that. So keep your eye out for some more information about that when registration opens.
Okay. Just like to start with a little bit of background information about assistive technology and transition. We're focusing on students transitioning from high school to either work situation, community situation, or more education. And it's important that the process begins in middle school, and there are provisions in the IEP that talk about IEP and talk about transition. However, a lot of times family really has to be the proactive member of the IEP team to get the whole issue of transition looked at seriously. And it's important to really think ahead, especially for students with disabilities. Where do you want to be after high school? What kinds of careers are you interested in? And really get the whole team to be focused on not only the skills and the assistive technologies that you're going to need in school, but what kinds of services and technologies are you going to need after you graduate? And if you can get a lot of the pieces in place while you're in school, it makes that transition so much more effective and a lot smoother. So it's important that schools are looking at things like communication supports, executive function skills, and information for family. And how do you get that process started?
So we think about this idea of transition, and so important, and clearly in an hour we're not going to be able to dive as deep into this as we would all love to, but I think we can hit on some of the key points here. Is that idea of thinking about what is the student's next step in their life? Where are they going? Are they going to school? Are they going to be in the community? Are they going to be working? And keeping that in mind, and how are they going to access assistive technology? We have a lot of students that Adam and I both work with that use technology in the K through 12 setting to be successful. But what is the plan to have that same level of support available to them once they are outside of school? That's something the team has to be aware of and the team has to plan for. Think about how the technology tools could they be transferred? Could there be some work with funding sources to bring those technology devices across funding sources into the different environments? Is it something that is a tool that had been working, but now there's better tools on the market, and now we move to a different type of tool? How do we ensure that the environment the student is moving to has the necessary supports available to make sure that child can be successful as they become a young adult? What are the service providers that are out there? We're focusing this a little bit towards New Jersey right now, so if you're from outside of New Jersey, I apologize, but we're using New Jersey terms here. Are you connected to DDD, Division of Developmental Disabilities? Are you connected to DVR, Division of Voc Rehab? Are they part of this process to ensure that as the student moves forward into this next phase and becomes this young adult, are they getting the supports they need, and are those supports effectively integrated into their environment so that it makes them successful?
Okay, so in terms of the legislation that established the requirements for assistive technology, It has two main parts. First of all, you have the devices. These are the things, the software, the apps, the actual technology that the student is going to be using to help them be more successful in school. And then you also have the services. That includes training, support, setup, purchase, modification, and customization. So the services are what really makes the technology successful. It makes everyone comfortable with using it, with knowing how to use it, with making sure that it fits what's going on in school or in the other focus areas. And if things need to be modified or customized, that could be done too. So it's important to have both. Technology without the support is kind of a recipe for the device or the technology not being used.
Yeah.
So it's important to think about that when you're going into the process of getting assistive technology. And if you ever need the quote from where assistive technology is established in the IDEA, here it is for you in section verse. And the important things in this definition is that assistive technology is used to increase, maintain, or improve functional capability of a child with disability. So if the student has difficulty doing a task that's related to school because of their disability, and the assistive technology can enable them to do it at the same level, to do it better, or help improve the way it's done somehow in some way, then assistive technology is something that should be provided to the student. And more information from IDEA about assistive technology. The services could include an evaluation, could include purchasing technology, could include selecting, designing, bidding, customizing, adapting, etc. All these different things that the technology might need to make sure that it's the best fit possible. And these are more kinds of activities that are included under assistive technology services. So it's a very broad category and includes lots of kinds of supports to make sure that technology is doing what it should.
Yeah, and as we go into this a little more, and we'll dive into some of the technology in just a second, but I just wanted to echo Adam's sentiment, this idea of not being so hung up on the stuff. People get so wrapped up in the things, the technology pieces, that they sometimes forget about all those services that have to be put in place to effectively use that thing, the technology. And I think that's so important. And we can't stress that enough, that idea of technology minus the services is going to fail. We've seen this in the past, whether it's anecdotally or seen research that talks about the idea of lack of service leading to device abandonment. And so that is really a critical, important piece that has to be there. It has to be addressed, has to be made a key component. In some instances, to me, I always think of that's the hard part of any AT implementation. Finding the things, finding the tools now is very easy. You go to Google, type in what you're looking for in a tool, and you'll get some things back. You'll get some choices to at least guide you down a path. So I think finding the tools, finding the technology that might support you in any of these areas we're talking about is relatively easy. The trick comes in how to take that tool that you found, that maybe it was an app that cost you $3 and you just dove right into it, and that's fine to a point, but how to make sure that $3 app is performing the task you want it to. And that's why we need to take a step back and think about that implementation process. Because if you just dive in and buy every $2 app, $3 app that you see because you think that that's going to work. While it might not seem like a lot in the beginning, after about 10 or 12 apps that don't work, suddenly you're out a pretty good chunk of money because you haven't taken a step back to figure out exactly what is it that we need right now, and then go forward and match that to the tools that are available. And so as we go through the rest of our time, we'll do some demos. We'll show some things live. Adam and I can show some videos, and we'll talk a little bit about things. Here's the areas of where we're going to look at technology for the rest of our time together. So we'll look at writing, note-taking, reading, communication, organization, time management, and scheduling. We will look at things in the range of available technology, 'cause we think that's critical. Low tech to high tech. Not everything we put in place for someone has to be high tech. Uh, it can be as simple as, and I'm staring at them right now in front of me on my desk, all of the post-it notes I have for the day of things that I have to do. That is my low tech solution. It works for me. It might not be pretty, but you know what? It continues to work. So find those systems that work for someone wherever they are on the spectrum of low tech to high tech. The other thing too, just a little kind of a word of warning as we go through this. We're showing you things that are examples in these areas. We're not saying these are the best things that are out there, because what does best truly mean? That's a whole other story. We're not saying these are the only tools that are out there. These are tools we've used in these areas, and we've found some success with the people we're serving. So if you have other suggestions, again, the chat window is there. Drop them in. People love getting resources, and we love sharing resources. So drop them in there. Give us some idea of some other things you've used in these areas as well. But we just want to make sure we're not setting you up right now with a shopping list. We don't want you to go out and purchase everything you see today, because quite frankly, it might not be necessary. So keep that in mind as we move through this. All right, our disclaimer is officially out of the way. We'll jump in and we'll start talking about some of it as we go through. We'll start with writing, talking a little bit about that, some supports for writing. Again, the kind of interesting, these couple sections where we talk about writing and reading, they're critical pieces that we look at with students in K to 12, but then sometimes people say, well, oh, well, this student's going out into the workplace now, so writing is not really important, or reading's not really important. No, that's not true. How many of us today, how many things have you read or written today already? It's a life skill that we need to provide support for our individuals. So making sure that we have them set up in a way that they can continue to be successful. And so again, we look at the low to high tech solutions here. The low tech could be as easy as an adapted pencil or a grip. Looking at adapted surfaces for writing, those kinds of things are low tech solutions. Thinking about keyboarding, and is this a skill that the person needs to develop in order to be effective on a computer, a Chromebook, a tablet, a smartphone, whatever it might be? Are they doing keyboarding? Are we adding in different levels of accommodations there, adapted keyboards, different apps that provide different levels of support for writing? Something like word prediction, where it gives them words as they're typing to help speed them up and help them with spelling. Or is it something like voice recognition? What's kind of interesting about voice recognition, and again, when Adam and I are happy and we could say we've been in this field 25 plus years, Adam and I have been in this field at the point where voice recognition systems used to be just that, a system. You would buy an entire computer setup that would cost upwards of $10,000 and include the entire computer, because that computer had to be custom made in order to allow you to dictate text into it. So the first drag and dictate systems were things that were thousands and thousands of dollars. Fast forward to today, and the technology we all have at our fingertips, or look in front of you right now, and I guarantee your phone is within 2 feet of you, as mine is as well. Think about it. Just about every device we have now will allow you to talk directly to it, and it will perform some function. I can talk to my phone and it will write. I can talk to my tablet. It will write. It will answer questions for me. It gives me that functionality. If I'm doing word processing and I'm working in a Google environment, that is built right into the word processor now. Voice typing, I click it, I start talking, I just go. These are things that have moved, and we've seen this progression of technology now. These things have changed from thousands of dollars add-on tools with pretty extensive training needed to now being a button on our devices that we simply turn on and it starts working. And so that's kind of an interesting transition that we've seen with this kind of influx of everyday technology tools that are always around us, our smartphones, our tablets, our laptop computers. This idea of devices being around us that provide this functionality. Kind of an exciting time to be around using technology because the level of support is so high and the options that are built in are so great. It's a really nice time to be able to assist an individual who's transitioning into this next phase of their life, because these tools, they probably have most of them already. And now what we're doing is simply pointing out these features, helping them understand how they work, and then moving them forward in order to be successful. So some of the other writing tools we could talk about, we're seeing a lot now with technology that is cloud-based. And so we're seeing a lot, and especially in the K-12 arena, we're seeing a lot with schools and students using Chrome, whether it's on a Chromebook or whether it is simply just browser-based tools that they're using on computers. And I think as this continues to become uh, more ingrained in how we're using technology, I think these kinds of web-based tools will become even more powerful and more necessary for individuals to have some support. And so we have things like toolbars. So the read and write is the toolbar on the bottom left, which is a floating toolbar that will allow me to do writing. It will help with writing. It will give me word prediction support. So you see word prediction on the right, which is the co-writer, which as I'm typing gives me word options that I can insert into my text. Suddenly, I'm able to not worry too much about spelling and speed because the word completion is dropping in to help me with that. The read write for Chrome also gives me text to speech support. So if I'm on a web page or if I'm in a document and I need to hear it in order to help me understand it, to improve comprehension, I can have text to speech support to use to listen to these documents. So really impressive tools that we have that are web-based or app-based. And we have a little demo, and I'll play the video of the Clicker Docs app, which will allow you to use things like word banks to speed up, again, the writing for someone who's doing who needs an additional layer of support in order to be an effective writer. So let me try this. This will be our moment of truth with these first videos kicking off. Let's see what happens. Adam and I were practicing this before we started.
Okay, so what we're looking at now is Clicker Docs. This is an iPad app, and it has built-in text-to-speech. So as you're typing, the app reads the letters and words back. It also has word prediction, which is that row of words along the top of the dictionary, the keyboard. And it provides word completion, vocabulary, and spelling support.
So you get kind of an idea how that could be really helpful for someone as they're moving forward with their needs for writing, giving them those additional levels of support.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about assistive technology supports for note-taking. And just one thing I wanted to add on to what Mike was talking about in terms of finding the right technologies and getting the supports. And that is, I mean, the good news is that a lot of technologies that students find helpful as a K-12 student are also going to serve them well after school. So it's not like you necessarily have to start all over and find all new technologies. If you're using something, for example, as a note-taking support for taking notes in class, well, guess what? Those same kinds of tools could be great if you have to take notes at a meeting, if you're in a work situation. And, you know, obviously, if you're in a college situation taking notes, those same tools can often be used. So that's why it's so important to really focus on getting the technologies while the student is still in middle or high school, because a lot of those technologies will still be great for them afterwards. Now, there's a lot of different kinds of note-taking supports. And one of the things that's really hard about note-taking is there's a lot of multitasking involved. So we're asking people to write, to listen, to process, to summarize, to organize, just a lot of things going on all at once. So if there's any way that pieces of that can be split off, make the task a little easier, that's great. For instance, note-taking templates help you with organizing information. A digital voice recorder could be used to record what the teacher's saying, so you can just listen or maybe just write a few notes and not have to worry about writing everything the teacher is saying on your paper or on your computer. A pen with an integrated voice recorder, like a Livescribe Pen, enables you to write and record at the same time. Note-taking programs and apps, some of them help you organize your information, and some of them help you with recording and writing. And interactive whiteboard programs are really great because the teacher can potentially give the student a copy of all the notes that are written on a smartboard or Promethean or some other brand of interactive whiteboard. And that can save the student from having to write everything that's up on the board. Maybe they could just write their thoughts or their questions. One example that we have a video of is the Livescribe Pen, which is a special pen that enables you to write on special paper and also record what's happening in the classroom. So you have to turn the pen on, always helps. Turn it on, start recording.
Has three branches: legislative, judicial, and Congress has two houses: Senate and House of Representatives. The U.S. government has three branches: legislative, judicial, and the executive branch.
So the idea is, I hope you could hear that, but the idea is that I'm writing one keyword to represent a lot of audio, but then when I go back and touch that writing with the pen, it'll play back the audio of what was happening while I was writing that entry.
So where the Livescribe Pen provides you that support in that physical device, so I have an actual notepad and an actual pen that I'm carrying around, so now I have these other devices. If we're looking for a solution that starts to integrate supports into one device, we can look at apps that perform the same task. And so the app that's on the screen there is called the Audio Note app, which performs its work exactly like the Livescribe Pen in what Adam just shown, in that I can hit the record button. The app will use the microphone built into the mobile device to record the environment as I type or handwrite. Then when I go back to listen to it later, all I have to do is tap on the words or the picture, and it will play me that moment in time again. So we're seeing this kind of same functionality. Then we take a step back and say, well, what is the device, or what's the mode that works best for the person I'm working with? Is it an actual pen on paper, or is it mobile on a screen, which allows typing? And it kind of leads itself into this next slide, because there's been a lot of interest lately in this idea of promoting what's called sketchnoting. And so this is kind of an idea of using visual notes. So for individuals who struggle with writing, sometimes they can use pictures to make the connections with the information. And so the picture on the right is a sketch note about sketchnoting. So you see this idea, it's a combination of pictures and words and arrows and diagrams and shapes and colors, those kind of things. Well, we can perform those same kind of tasks on a mobile device. The picture on the left is an iPad using the Audio Note app. And what I did on that screen is, instead of typing my notes, I drew them using the Apple Pencil, and it recorded the conversation in the room at the same time. So now what I have is a visual representation of my notes. Now, granted, my picture is not nearly as good as the picture on the right, but it worked for me. And what's interesting is I can go back now that that's all recorded in the iPad, and I can tap on any part of that drawing, and it will play me back the moment where someone was speaking about those materials. So a really creative way to do that. And Adam mentioned this whole idea of processing and the struggles that some of the students have with processing. This could help with that, because it could either, they could simply make marks on a paper or marks on the screen, and then that could represent something later. They could draw a picture. I've seen students who I thought for sure would get lost in the drawing aspect of a sketch note do very good later on, remembering pieces that they had drawn, even though it seemed like they were kind of in their own world of this picture. They weren't. They were actually paying attention, and the pictures they were drawing were tied to what it is we were talking about. So it's just another option. We're thinking about supporting individuals that potentially learn differently. This is a great example of a way to support an individual who learns in another way. I don't know if one is better note-taking than another. It's not. It's just different. And I think that has to be appreciated and respected. Some of the things we think about for reading, go through this again. Remember, just because we're out of school, if an individual is in the community or at work, there is still responsibility for reading. And so thinking about some of these other supports we can put in place, different kinds of materials. We'll talk about the different kinds of materials in the next slide, but thinking about providing other supports, electronic dictionaries, apps that have dictionaries built into it, using the built-in features of your mobile devices that give you support for text of what words mean, definitions, how to say them, things like that. Looking at audiobooks, talking books that are digital, using some of the built-in supports on these devices, these technologies, to read things aloud for someone. And then the last part on that slide, which I think is really important, we think about individuals transitioning to a next environment outside of school. The idea to take text and print materials that they come across in their daily lives and make it accessible to them so it can be read aloud for someone who is not a good reader. And so we'll look at those as well as we go through. So when we're in schools, we talk with people about this idea of accessible educational materials, providing students with the supports they need to ensure that they have the formats that work for them. And the 4 formats that we talk about with accessible educational materials are audio, braille, large print, and digital text. So I think as we move forward, thinking about what is the format that the person you're working with needs materials provided in. And then most importantly, once you figure that out, is where do you find materials? Some of them could be materials that are available to you if you qualify for them. So we have Bookshare and Learning Ally are two services that will provide you access to materials if you qualify as an individual with a print disability. So there's a qualification process there. As individuals move out into the transition to that next step, there might be a fee for some of these services. But again, getting somebody either the digital text, which is what Bookshare provides, or the human narrated audio, which they get from Learning Ally. Those are two services they can tap into. Some of the other services listed on that page are available to anyone. Project Gutenberg is a web-based service which has e-text. So it has out of copyright materials provided in an electronic form that someone can then download into their device to use. LibriVox is audiobooks, so free audiobooks. Again, those tend to be older, out of copyright materials, but it could be something that someone needs to read. And then finally on that slide, don't forget the idea of using commercially available products. Look at Audible to provide audio materials for someone. So I purchase them, they're commercially made, but they give me audio support for print that I might need access to. One of the other things, which is really where we see a lot of individuals needing some support, is as they move into the community or work or even into higher ed, this idea of getting access to materials that are given to them in a print form and get them digitally so that they can do some task with them, whether it's simply read information or actually take the information and do something with it, answer questions, do some writing on top of it, whatever it might be. When we think about this, the idea of using materials, and this slide kind of focuses on what we call OCR, this idea of optical character recognition, the idea of taking a document which is paper, converting it into a readable format so that an individual can have a device provide them some support with text-to-speech. This used to be an area where we would have technology tools that were thousands of dollars, that someone needed to have a computer set up to allow them to convert these documents into materials that could be read and then be manipulated. Now, we have the examples on this screen here are all app-based that work on mobile devices, and there's not a single app on this screen that's more than $10, I don't think. So we have, because of the power of our mobile devices, we can have access to these supports right as an app to let us snap a picture of something, convert it to text. And I'll give you a quick example of that in one of the videos. Well, hopefully you guys can hear it, but I'll give you a quick example of the app called Claro Scan Pen. And what that will allow us to do, if the slide comes back, let's see. There we go. And so what we can do is we have the ability to take a mobile device through this app, take a picture of text, and then so using the app, take a picture of any print document you have, line up the text in the frame, snap a picture of it, app goes through, converts that picture to text, and then allows you to read it out loud. So you see how that works. So now that was simply snapping a picture, dragging my finger across the text, and it read that text aloud. Think about as somebody could be moving into the community who is a non-reader, and they come across things all day long. Signs on a wall, text that they have to fill out, job applications, whatever it might be. They could simply take a picture of that with their phone, scan across it, and have it read it to them. So that's called Claro Scan Pen is the name of that app. Really powerful app for independence, for someone who is a non-reader. And think about the flexibility of that. I go into the store, and I'm not sure if I'm looking at the right item, so I can take a picture of it, and it'll read off the text from that label. Really powerful. The other thing is when we think about, when we finally get the materials into an electronic form, how do we use them? How do we have auditory support for them. And so we have a couple examples here. One is an app based. So the picture on the left shows the Voice Dream Reader, which is an app that runs on our mobile devices. It runs on either iOS or Android, which is nice. I'm a big fan of those apps that are cross-platform, that work anywhere, because then someone is not tied into a specific device. They can move back and forth. So we have that ability to take text of any kind, drop it into that app, whether it's straight text, a PDF, an electronic book, whatever it might be. I can put it in there and that app will read it out loud to me. I'll read it with highlighting, so it'll provide me with some support visually as well as auditorily. And the picture on the right shows a Chrome extension called Snap and Read Universal, which works very similar to the one we saw before when we saw Read and Write for Google, where it allows me to open this extension up in my Chrome browser in any web page, and then I can move through it and have the text read aloud to me to provide that different level of support. If someone needs text leveled, so if they're a struggling reader and they're interacting with text that is at a higher reading level than where they are currently at, they can, with the hit of a button, they can adjust the reading level of that page to make it simpler to read that page for them. So a lot of options as we see this and move through of tools that are out there to provide text-to-speech support for materials that we might be using throughout a day.
Okay. The next topic area we're talking about is communication. And communication is, first of all, it is a basic human right. And if a child or an adult cannot communicate their needs and wants, then it's incumbent upon the organizations and people that support them to make sure that they have some way to communicate. They should be able to communicate whatever it is that they need to tell us. So it's extremely important that communication supports be put in place that match what the person needs to say and matches the location that they're in. Some low-tech communication supports are communication boards made on paper or communication books, which could be set up in a spiral-bound notebook like the picture shown on this slide. For medium tech devices, it could be a single message device where you record a message into the device itself and you push a button and it'll play that message back. Some can be set up where you could play a series of single messages in sequence. There's also speech generating devices with overlays, which are a little bit more involved devices, but you can have multiple messages on one board, and by pressing each of those buttons, you'll be able to get those different messages. And the highest tech communication supports are speech generating devices with dynamic screens. It could be a standalone device like a Tobii i15. It could be some other dedicated device that's specifically set up for communication. It could be special software that's on a computer of some kind. And or it could be what's now the most popular form of communication devices. It could be a special communication app on an iPad or other tablet. We want to show you a demonstration of one of these iPad apps, and we're going to show you SonoFlex Lite, which is a free version of an app that will work on an iPad or on a computer. And this is set up with high frequency words on the first two rows. The bottom two rows are categories. And as I'm pushing those buttons, the words are going up into that top center bar, which is sometimes called a message window. And I'm looking for the right word. And once that's completed, it will speak the whole message that's in the message window. There's also quick phrases. So if I just want to say an entire phrase, ones that I use a lot, I could select those. And there's different ways that you can access categories. And of course, all of these can be customized, which is really important part of a communication system, so that it matches the things that the person would want to communicate, whether it's their favorite food, their favorite people, or their favorite places to go.
So as we
Mhm.
move into
Sorry.
our area of organization and kind of this last section we'll talk about, and again, like we mentioned before, this was a very broad stroke, but hopefully it gave you something to think about in these ideas of these different areas of support we need to look at when we think about transitioning with someone out of the K-12 setting into the next level of whatever they're going to do. And so when we think about organization, I'm just happy in itself because Adam and I talked about this yesterday and said that it would be horrible if we didn't get to this part of the webinar because we ran out of time, this organization time management piece. But these ideas of providing different levels of support for someone in a low-tech to a high-tech solution. Again, we mentioned this idea of organization. Thinking about how do you organize yourself? Do you use a calendar? Do you use an agenda? Do you use a calendar book? Do you use a print or a digital calendar? What do you use to organize your materials that you use throughout a day? Are there folders? Are they color-coded? How do you do that? Different ways to think about organizing both yourself and anything you might need to do. Looking at some tools that might help us do that. Maybe it's a tool like Inspiration, which allows you to organize writing. That might be a tool someone can use to help them organize themselves and their tasks and their to-dos and things like that. Do it digitally. Or do you use something to manage your files or materials? And what do those look like? I am a Google Drive person. I am a Google person. That's what I use. Thinking about this idea of access to my materials all the time, no matter where I am. And so thinking about support through these apps or these web-based tools and Google Drive, if I need a document, Adam and I spoke yesterday, I happened to be in the car while we were talking, but I was able to pull up my Google Drive to pull up the things we were talking about today on my phone while we were talking so we could continue on our discussion. I could pull up my laptop, my iPad, my phone. It didn't matter. All of them running a different software, but my materials available anywhere. Thinking about things like that. Google Drive, using something maybe like Evernote, which is, again, cross-platform and allows someone to organize their materials. Thinking about different ways to provide those levels of support someone might need in order to be successful. Which leads us to this last part.
That's a really good point, Mike. And I just wanted to go back briefly to the idea of organization. And I heard recently that one of the most important criteria for figuring out if someone's going to be successful in college is having a good system for organizing things. And so, being organized is not only helpful, but it really is one of these critical factors that not everyone always thinks about when, let's say, you're in a college situation. You think, well, do they know the material? Can they take notes, etc.? But being organized is super, super important, because if you're not organized in college or on a work situation or wherever, you're going to have a very difficult time doing the things that you want to do. So it's important to get those strategies and those tools in place while students are still in school, so that when they graduate, they know what they're going to do. They've got the system in place, and they're ready to use it in a new situation. Okay, so now we're talking about time management and scheduling. And a lot of the students that Mike and I work with time management is a challenge, and that could be on a lot of different levels. It could be on the big picture level, like I have a project to do in 4 weeks, and every week I have to do a small part of it so that it's not all left for the night before it's due. Or I can keep track of when I have my classes, when my other different homework assignments are done, due. And that's great for things like calendar programs. Google Calendar is a good one. There's also lots of great apps with built-in reminders that are designed for students. But also on a more short-term basis, how do I monitor my time going throughout the day? If I'm in the middle of math class and I know it's a 40-minute class and 10 minutes have passed, well, to know that there's 30 minutes left, it's going to help me self-monitor and self-manage my ability to stay focused. And also, when it's almost time for class to be over, it's going to help me get ready for the things that I have to do to transition to the next activity. And managing transitions and being aware of how much time has elapsed versus how much time is left is something that technologies like a smartwatch, like a computer, like an iPad or a phone can help with. One that I particularly like is called the Time Timer. And this is a visual timer. It's a visual clock. Sometimes it's like a rotating disc that shows you how much time has elapsed and how much time is still left. Available as a watch, an iPhone app, a computer program, a desk clock, or a wall clock. So there's a lot of different ways that you can use that. I'm also a huge fan of reminders. That's a lot of the students I work with. I really encourage them to use something like Google Calendar, because not only can you set it up on the calendar, but you can program it to give you a reminder a day before, a week before, an hour before. And reminders are super, super useful, but once you learn how to use them, they're pretty easy to use. And for something like Google Calendar, it's totally free. Always a good thing, right?
Always a good thing.
Yes.
For sure.
It
So
is.
as we come to near the end of our time together, we wanted to remind you that you could drop in some questions. So feel free, drop in any questions you might have. Hopefully we'll come up with answers. Let's see how that goes. And you never know. I'm perfectly comfortable with the answer of I don't know, but we should find that out. But please, if you have questions that come up as we were talking, drop them into the chat and we can discuss. We also put together a bunch of additional resources. Like anything else, you try to condense things into an hour to hit on a lot of topics in a very broad way. But then we know that as you go forward, some of you are very specifically interested in certain areas. So we wanted to give you more resources there. So we have a resource page that we put together. It's online, and it's at bit.ly/transition17. And that will give you a whole bunch of other resources, technology resources in all of the areas that we spoke about. So you'll be able to go through those and find yourself some additional information, see if there's some other things that you could explore or try out in any of those areas. So again, that's bit.ly/transition17. As we continue, and I'll continue going forward while you guys, if you have questions, you can feel free to drop them in there. A couple things. We can give you a certificate for attendance for participating in this webinar. You have to go to the web link on the screen there to fill out the quick survey about the webinar today, and that is at bit.ly/AT-demo-survey, all one word, no space. AT-demo survey, and that will walk you through there and ask you the questions. Fill it out. It's a Google form online. Just fill it out and we will send you a certificate in your email so you have it. So again, please bit.ly/ATDemoSurvey will get you to the form for the survey for your certificate of attendance. And just to kind of pique your curiosity here, we have a couple other upcoming webinars. We're going to try to do these once a month throughout the year. So we have our next two already planned. So in April 13th, we're going to have a representative coming to speak to us about the New Jersey Assistive Technology Alternative Financing Program. So if you have a situation where someone needs technology but doesn't have a funding source to provide it to them, and they would like to borrow money. So these are loan programs that are low interest rate loans to provide funding for technology that there might not be any other funding for. We're going to have Lori come and she's going to speak about that to us. That's on April 13th. And then on May 25th, we're going to have a webinar that focuses on smart home technology. And that's going to be Fred Chang from Advancing Opportunities. And we'll talk about the new kind of trend in digital home assistants, these Internet of Things assistants like the Amazon Echo and the Google Home and all of those tools that allow us to be constantly connected to the web and provide different levels of support. And while those devices are promoted as technologies for everyone, we're going to take that slant of look at it as how can those be assistive technology and provide additional support to an individual with a disability. So that's on May 25th. We'll send you in a follow-up email, we'll send you links to sign up for those as well. Then you have our contact information there, so please feel free, reach out to us. We'd be happy to chat with you about anything. You have both Adam and myself, all of our contact information there. From our phone numbers to emails to Twitter handles, whatever you want, it's all there on one slide. We'll give you just another second if anybody has any questions. I didn't see any, so we'll keep moving forward. Adam, any final parting words?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's great that you were all here today, and I really appreciate you participating with us. Just two parting ideas from my perspective is that we're always looking for new ideas. You know, what are things that people are trying? What have they been successful with? So if there's something that you've tried that we didn't talk about that you want to add, you know, we're definitely interested. The other thing is, just in general, one of the greatest ways to find the right fit between technology and a person is just to have them try it. You should always have them try it. And we see some districts moving towards this a model of just purchasing the same thing for everybody, or the same thing for all their students with disabilities. And it's a little bit of a troubling trend because you really have to try technology, just like you would want to try a pair of shoes or take a car for a test drive. You have to make sure that it's a good fit for you. So always have the student try the technology when you're looking at new things, and you'll find out pretty soon if it's going to work or not.
Definitely.
So that's my 2 cents at our parting words.
I like that. That's a good 2 cents. We did have a question come in about the Scan Pen app. And the question was, can we use that app, the Scan Pen, for worksheets and applications, anything with a fill in the blank? You can definitely use it for that. It will read the text off the page. There was a second part to the question which said, will it OCR your answers? And so now anything that you handwrite on a piece of paper, it will not do a very good job of reading it. It is really about print, not about handwriting, but about print on a page is where it excels. I've only seen one person, it's actually a student in my college class, who writes so nicely that the app actually read her handwriting, but she was only one out of everyone I've ever tried. So I would say a pretty safe bet is no, it's not going to read or OCR your handwriting. That's a good question though, but a great app for sure, for a lot of other choices. Good. Well, thank you for your question. Make sure there's none other before I let everybody go. You're welcome. All right. With that, we'll say thank you very much for your time today. We do appreciate it. If you have any other questions, reach out to either Adam or myself at our contact info there. And we hope to see you at a future webinar. Thanks very much for your time. Have a good day.
Thanks, everyone.